Hi everybody, it's great to be back here again on Itamar. Today is a special day. It is Memorial Day here in Israel, and just got back from the memorial ceremony in the military cemetery in Itamar. It's a military cemetery together with a regular cemetery, but almost everyone buried in the cemetery, people that were murdered or gave their lives defending Itamar. And of course, every year it's very, very moving. And we always look back at these terrible tragedies, and we look at all the amazing fighters of Israel that gave their lives, and in their merit we stand here today and we continue to build the land of Israel, and we have to be thankful every day for these soldiers and these great people that gave their life for the sake of Israel, that we could be here. What I want to do right now, we are approaching the holiday of Yom Haatzmaut, Israel Independence Day, and it's very important to get a message out there across the world. I remember when I moved to Israel way back when I was 21, and after spending time in high school here, but I was always amazed at the difference of how we celebrate Yom Haatzmaut, Independence Day here in Israel, and how, as Orthodox Jews in America, we celebrate the holiday. It is barely, unfortunately, in America and in places outside of Israel, in many places it's barely felt a special day. And of course, you're far away from the land. And there are places that, unfortunately, don't even celebrate ideology. With ideology, they don't want to celebrate the holiday of Yom Haatzmaut. There are others that have doubts. How should we celebrate it? Is it a secular holiday? Is it a spiritual holiday? It's a religious holiday? How do we deal with this whole concept? And there are so many different directions out there, people. And I think it's important for once and for all to set people straight what this day is all about, what is Yom Haatzmaut all about, and why do the people like here on Itamar, Israel, and all over Israel, the religious Zionist camp, strongly celebrates this day by saying Hallel, by saying the special prayer of thanking Hashem, with special tefillot, with other special prayers, tremendous rejoicing, and it's very important to work us out halachically, as we say, with Jewish law, and where we come from, and why is it so meaningful this day to us. And I'd like to bring a few different sources in, and together, hopefully, this will be a message for the Jewish world out there. And I know that it's Torah. Many of my Torah lessons reach all the entire world, and we have other people that reading and watching our Torah lessons are not Jewish, but this particular message is focused really on the Jewish community, because I think the non-Jewish world will not understand, like, why wouldn't we say Hallel? Why wouldn't we rejoice God for such a special day? And sometimes our dear friends that love Israel, non-Jewish world, that they wake up before we wake up. As we know, that's why it says when we read the Psalms, Shira Ma'alot, the song of ascent, it says, when it goes on to say, Hayinu Kochamim, we were like dreaming. Az Yomru Agoyim, then the nations of the world will say, Higdil Hashem Lasot, God has done great with you. And then later, and after it says, Higdil Hashem Lasot Imanu, the Jews will say, God has done great with us. A lot of times it happens that the non-Jews wake up first and they realize the greatness that God does to His people, and the people themselves don't realize it. And therefore, since this lesson is really focused on for the Jews that don't understand yet or see things differently, this is really for them, and the non-Jews probably say, "What are you talking about over here? What does it all mean?" It's so obvious that we have to be praised and thank God for what we've gotten. So anyway, of course, anyone can listen to this class, but I'm really, as we say in Hebrew, giving a little bit musar, which I don't do often. Musa means you want to give a little, reproof in a very gentle way. We try to be gentle most of the time, but of course, those who want to disagree may disagree. But this is, of course, where we're coming from, and we're here building the land. Is what we believe in. So I want to start by saying a great miracle took place in 1948 in Hebrew, Tashach, the year Tashach. It was a Friday, May 14th. It was Hey Iyar. And this great miracle that the state of Israel was declared by Ben Gurion. And this great day of declaring the state of Israel, yes, is a Jewish holiday, and yes, it's a religious holiday. And I'm going to try to explain why. First of all, We have to realize that as a nation of Israel, let's look back at our history. We were scattered about the nations, and we were tortured and beaten and abused and murdered. There was no words to describe that the sea, as we say, the worst of it all came at the terrible Holocaust we just commemorated last week, the Holocaust Day. We saw what the Nazis and the Jew hatred out there could do, how could it almost destroy an entire nation. 6 million Jews were destroyed, murdered, children. I was just reading information about my family, my personal family. When you read about the names of aunts and uncles, you just read these names of great aunts and uncles. Wanted children that just were all carted away to Auschwitz. My wife's father, the only survivor of such a big family. And it's all over every family. There's no family that wasn't had some kind of relative of someone who was murdered by the Nazis. And not too long ago. Let's not forget that it's not too long ago. And the miracle took place that out of these ashes, as the prophet Yecheskel says in many places, and especially in 36, we read, Yecheskel 36, and we read about how the Chilul Hashem, the terrible disgrace of God's name, the Jewish people are not in the land of Israel. It's the worst disgrace that we can do for Hashem, is to be outside of His land, the people, the God that gave a message to the world through the people of Israel, in the land of Israel. And here we are, not in the land for so many thousands of years. And then came this great miracle, where the Jews who had no home, they had no place to go, being again persecuted and murdered everywhere they were. But they came back to the land. And of course, as it says in the Talmud, in the tractate of Ketubot, that La'olam Yadu Adam, a person should always live in Israel, in the land of Israel, even in a place full of idol worshippers, then rather than live in a city in the diaspora outside of Israel full of Jews. Which means it's something so intrinsic, so special about the land. And here, finally, we have the privilege in 1940 of declaring the state of Israel. And now many will say, okay, let's separate. Living in Israel, I can understand. That's a very important thing. You know, I want to follow that Talmud passage of living here, and it's a great thing. But this whole secular state thing, how do we deal with that? And the answer is, it is so clear that it's mentioned also in places in Halakha that when we come to the cities of Judea and Samaria and Israel, the cities, so mentioned in Halakha, cities that have been destroyed, there's a law that we have to rip our garment in mourning over these places in destruction. When it comes, of course, to Jerusalem, a holy city. And the law is based on the halacha commentaries explain that the difference is not Jews living there or not, it is having sovereignty. As long as we don't have our sovereignty over these particular areas, and we see them in their ruins, we have to rip our garment, because what counts is the sovereignty. And that's exactly the miracle which took place in 1948. We achieved our sovereignty as a nation in Israel, a Jewish nation coming to life again. And the sovereignty was what counts. Many people say, they bring down the tractate in Ketubot. There are many ask, this is really in the ultra-Orthodox world, they're trying to build an Agadah. Agadah is a passage of, not of law, but of, again, has a spiritual message behind it. And it talks about that God made 3 oaths. The Jewish people, that you're not allowed to wake up before it's time. You can't go out there and wake up the redemption before it's time. And they try to translate this and saying that we can't wake up the redemption now. And they even rely on one commentary called the Megillat Esther, a great rabbi, again in the period of the Gishonim, that says that nowadays there's no mitzvah of moving to Israel because we have to wait. The Mashiach comes on eagle's wings and bring us here, so we can't actually come and do it now, and therefore there's no mitzvah involved. We have to wait, and they base themselves on the Talmud. But of course, I don't even have to mention. So there are so many sources that the majority of sources say that yes, the mitzvah of building the land of Israel exists today. And if we look not too far, one of the greatest rabbis of all time, Nachmanides, the Ramban, he mentions the mitzvah, the commandment of settling the land of Israel, and he brings it down in his on the Rambam. The Maimonides lists the different mitzvot. He brings it down on the 4th mitzvah. If you look in the 4th mitzvah on his editions, and he talks about the mitzvah of settling the land of Israel. And the Ramban divides the mitzvah based on the verse in Numbers. In Bamidbar, if we look in Bamidbar, it says that there are two parts to actually building the land of Israel. And I actually wrote down the pasuk in front of me. I have it here. It says, "V'orashtem et haaretz," and you will inherit the land. V'yashavtem ba, and you will dwell in the land. Ki lechem, to you, natati et haaretz, I've given you the land. L'reshet, as an inheritance. L'reshet, to inherit the land. If you look at this verse is mentioned in Numbers 33, verse 53. And here we see that there are two parts of this mitzvah, this commandment that the Ramban writes, and one of them is capturing the land. V'orashtem, you have to capture the land. But there's also a part called v'yashavtem, you have to make the land thrive, settle the land. There are two parts, capturing and settling, which means not enough if you capture the land, then you leave it fallow. There's a mitzvah, commandment of building the land, making it grow, and making it flourish, and building communities like Itamar. Every stone we put here, every tree we plant, every shekel we invest in building this, we're doing the mitzvah, doing Hashem's word. What the Rambam says, one of the 613 commandments of building the land of Israel. Wow, how important this is. And the Ramban says right there, way back, one of the Rishonim, he's a very ancient commentator, and he says, this is a mitzvah, a commandment for all generations. So what happened? He didn't recognize that passage in Ketubot. The Rambam, of course, understood it differently. Obviously, we saw how the whole coming about of the state of Israel was permission. Okay, one of the explanations understanding Haggadah, it's going to be, you have your eyes in your head, and you have to work together with the world, with the way the world, things are moving along, which means the United Nations at that point, they voted for the state of Israel to come as a state. And it was places like Russia voted. So we know that they were part of it. And that's the whole thing. We're not rebelling against the world. The world was together with us on that amazing announcement. And here we see the Ramban. And of course, this is just one so simple thing. We have to open our eyes and see how God makes things happen. Of course, a lot of people say, well, these are secular people and they're not all Sabbath observant. How can we look at what they're doing? How can we relate to what they're doing? It's all from the dark side, and the answer is it's ridiculous. When they do something right, when someone does a mitzvah, when someone does something right, we got to thank them for doing the right thing, and we got to strengthen them on the right thing they did. But if they're doing other things that are wrong, we have to reprove them for the wrong things they're doing. But we can't take away the good that they did. And this beautiful mitzvah, the most important mitzvah, as it says in the Sifri, in the Midrash, that settling the land of Israel is like fulfilling all the commandments of the entire Torah. Shkula keneged kol mitzvot Torah. So how can we possibly take away from them when doing something right? That's a ridiculous claim, and there's no basis at all. That's number one. To go on, and there's just so much that we can focus on and discuss. The miracle, we think about it. I look at my son now, my son Ephraim. He's an elite unit in the Israeli army, and after I can go back to previous generations as a child living in America. And looking at our family, the Holocaust, my wife especially, my father actually survived the Holocaust. Here he was.